Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael, and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named ExoArmy in the True Off My Chest subreddit. The post is titled, "I am staying no contact with my entire family because my brother is a grapist. Did I make the right choice?" Long story short, I fled across the country from my family last December, about a week before Christmas. I left because my brother abused me for years. I have other posts going more in depth, but my parents are devout African Pentecostal Christians. This means they believe in praying in tongues, being filled with the Holy Spirit, experiencing spiritual manifestations, and seeing visions. My parents are both pastors and own their own church. I was 17 when the truth about my brother's actions came to light. My parents' reaction was to suppress everything, force me to forgive my brother, and protect the church's reputation. My dad said he never understood family secrets until then, and both my parents told me I should never tell anyone about what happened to me. They allowed my brother to move back into the basement and continue living with us for years. During and after all of that, I felt like I was dying inside. Living in that house felt like hell on earth, and I was struggling mentally. I went from graduating high school with a 4.1 GPA to dropping out of college with a 2.3 GPA. I stopped attending all my classes and responding to people, and it was getting really dark for me, so in December, my boyfriend and I decided that I had nothing to lose by packing a suitcase, taking my important documents, and flying across the country to live with his family. I sent my parents a very long email detailing why I left and renouncing religion. I blocked their numbers and emails, and I haven't spoken to anyone in my family for the last 8 months. Recently, I've noticed emails from my mom while checking my spam folder, and my boyfriend has received voicemails from my dad. He has about 4 different numbers, and we forgot to block all of them. The emails have been making me feel extremely guilty for leaving my parents. In all of the emails, my mom tells me how she cries herself to sleep every night because I was her only daughter and prays I'll come home. Despite everything, she's still the woman who sacrificed a lot to raise me for 21 years, and it hurts me to know I'm actively causing her pain like this. Most people with immigrant parents know how hard it is to form an open and trusting relationship with them. Even if they didn't support me mentally and emotionally, they supported me financially for 21 years, and I feel extremely selfish about never speaking to them again. It still hurts a lot 8 months later, and I'm starting to wonder if I really did make the right choice. Edit. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for the overwhelming support. I did not think this many people would read my post or care enough to leave a comment, so thank you all so much. Secondly, I see a lot of people telling me I need to go to the police and open up a case against my brother. I did do that when I was 17. My parents begged me to stop talking to the detectives. They told me that the police were never on my side and they were looking for reasons to put me away as well. They said my dad's reputation would be ruined and they wouldn't have a church anymore. So I refused to talk to the detectives anymore because I didn't want to destroy my family's livelihood. A few weeks later, when my brother got the call that the case was dropped, he came into the church singing and proclaiming his testimony that the devil sent demons to try to put my brother away, but God defeated them and he's free. He intentionally kept it pretty vague in front of the congregation. My dad promised me that he would never let my brother spend another night in the house again. A year later, they moved him back into the basement, and that's when I started spiraling. Now that I'm across the country, finding the detective to reopen the case might be difficult, but I think there's a picture of her contact card somewhere in my Google Photos I need to dig up and give a call. User historical sources said, if you ever feel like responding, you could say, "You chose your daughter's abuser and our reputation over your daughter. Your tears are for yourself." You could also send a formal cease and desist letter regarding the contact. Even if you do nothing, remember that you chose yourself. You chose to love yourself. That's what's important. They can play the victim all they want, but you know they chose to protect an abuser over the victim. They made the wrong choice, and it's not something they can ever make up for. You don't have to hate them or love them, but remember to keep loving yourself and put yourself first. User Quanvoom said, "You are making the right choice. Your parents raising you or supporting you financially is not a gift. It's literally a basic necessity of being a parent. Instead, they damaged you emotionally and mentally by turning a blind eye to your trauma and are actively continuing to hurt you by staying with your abusive brother and burying everything. This makes them not only inadequate parents, but also morally compromised individuals. You are not selfish for leaving them, and you made the right choice by disassociating from them. User Cryptographer said, "You have to protect yourself first and foremost. You know you are not healthy or safe in their home. You know that they won't change their stance and that they won't protect you. A parent's most important job is to provide a safe and healthy environment for their child, and they failed dramatically when it came to you. Have they apologized? Have they admitted any fault? Have they removed your brother from the home? If not, this is likely just them knowing how to manipulate you. You owe them nothing. They're most likely reaching out because having one of their children disappear suddenly without warning has caused comments and questions in their community. It makes them look bad because most of the community would expect an adult child to move out openly and with the support of family and the wider community. You left everyone and everything, which is a massive red flag that something wasn't right. And now they have to lie, don't they? They can't tell everyone what your brother did and what they failed to do. They can't admit that they failed you, so they have to try and get you back, first by talking to you, then by manipulating you into returning. Don't fall for it. Update. A few days before Christmas, my mother unexpectedly showed up at my boyfriend's family's front doorstep. She had traveled across the entire country to find me unannounced. I had no idea she was coming and was very surprised by everything. She asked to speak with me, and I was really hoping that things had changed, so I agreed to listen to her. We sat on chairs in the front lawn. She asked me if I was okay and started telling me how happy she was to see me. She said that she and my father had been in and out of the hospital with worry and stress about me. She also said that she was sorry for the things she did not know and things that were done out of ignorance. After all of that, she asked me if I wanted to talk to my brother, and I really missed him, so she called my father. He began to tell me how he was finally going to sleep well for the first night since I left the house, now that he got to see my face. He also repeated most of the things my mother said, almost word for word, including apologizing for what he didn't know was happening. He also said, "Find it in your heart to forgive us just as we have." He trailed off there, and that line was literally a wake-up call because at that point, I had been crying and feeling so guilty for what I've been putting my elderly parents through. But that line made me pause because I couldn't understand what he possibly had to forgive me for. What had I done to him? Flee for my safety? I think my mother noticed my change in demeanor because she ended the call with him pretty soon after and asked to take me out to eat. I brought my boyfriend with us so I wouldn't be driven to an airport instead. We went to a local restaurant and the silence during our meal was palpable. When my boyfriend went to the bathroom, my mother began questioning me about where I work, what I am doing with my future, and if I am going back to college. She asked me if I was thinking about returning to our home state to finish college, and I told her I was not leaving with her under any circumstances. I noticed that throughout all the questions she asked me since she arrived at our doorstep, she never truly asked how I was doing. She didn't ask if I had a bed to sleep on, food to eat, means of transportation, or even money in my bank account. I never told her that my food stamps were halted for the month of December because I missed one letter, so I have to wait until mid-January for a recertification appointment. She probably would have been appalled I was taking government assistance anyway. I never told her that I am working a job paying $1 above minimum wage to save $3,000 to pay my old university to release my transcripts, but even if she offered to help, it most likely would have had heavy strings attached. After we left the restaurant, she tried asking for my phone number. I told her that I have a new Google Voice number after the one my father used to pay for was turned off. She was apparently under the impression that he was still paying for the phone. So she called him again, and when asked about the old phone plan, he stuttered heavily before saying that he was still paying for it and had no idea what happened. When my mother tried to tell him that he needs to investigate, he told her that she should stop worrying about that and offered to buy me a new phone plan. I declined because I did not want my parents to be able to hold anything over my head. He then went on to start lecturing me about finishing college and how whatever anybody has said about my parents is not true. He even managed to very quickly drop in a, "Well, you said you don't believe in God anymore, but anyway." I didn't give him the satisfaction of a reply. After getting off the phone with my father, my mother asked if I wanted to spend the night at her hotel room because she missed me so much. I also declined that, and she dropped us off at the house. A few days after she left, I received a Christmas card and a $50 gift card from her in the mail. I guess the point of my update is to ask if I am still doing the right thing. I mostly feel really guilty about my mother because she's old. She believes and does whatever my father says, and I think my father's pride about power and reputation makes him a very difficult person. I also know for a fact that they are still in contact with and working with my abusive brother, so I know that I really shouldn't care about them either. But my heart hurts and I am really confused. I appreciate all advice. Thank you for reading. This next story was made in the AITAH subreddit by a user named OKButterfly. The post is titled AITAH for telling my wife she's just as racist as her parents. I am white. My wife of 30 years, Naomi, is Japanese. We have 3 children. This story focuses on my oldest son, Kyle. When Kyle first got to college, he began dating a Japanese girl, and when he introduced her to my wife, Naomi loved her. They didn't end up working out. For the past 3 years, my son has been seeing Danny, a black woman. My son was in medical school across the country and met Danny because they both volunteered at a soup kitchen. I remember the first time he sent a picture of her, my wife immediately didn't like her. I'm going to try to phrase this without sounding insensitive myself. Danny has a style that some might associate with urban black culture. She wears large hoop earrings, long nails, and long eyelashes. I think she looks stunning, but I've never been deeply involved in African American culture. Recently, my son moved back to our city for residency, and Danny moved with him to start law school. They were staying in an Airbnb while looking for a place, and this week they finally found one, so they invited us over for dinner. Danny cooked soul food, and it was amazing. I complimented her food, and my wife gave me a side eye. Naomi then pulled out her phone and asked Danny why she dresses like that and why she was dancing provocatively in public. Kyle asked his mom what her problem was. I then took the phone to scroll through Danny's Instagram. While she did have some videos of her having fun, she also had plenty of pictures of her academic achievements. Before Danny could answer, I told my wife that Danny is young and having fun. I asked if she saw that Danny graduated cum laude or all the time she volunteered. My wife looked angry that I would bring that up. Naomi then said that she thinks Danny isn't good enough for our son. Danny then asked why Naomi loved Kyle's ex so much. She didn't graduate with honors and has posted about many different romantic interests on social media. Danny then said it's evident the reason Naomi doesn't like her is because of her race. Naomi doubled down and said, "So what? I've never heard Kyle even disrespect his mother, but he told her to get out." Naomi left crying. In the car on the ride home, I asked her what her problem was. She asked why I didn't defend her. I said because she was being racist and a hypocrite, and she's acting just like her parents. Her parents didn't like me because I was white. She just said it's different and was silent on the way home. When we got to the house, she locked herself in the room and started crying. I can't feel bad for her because if someone disrespected my wife the way she disrespected Danny, I would have done the same exact thing Kyle did. But am I the AH because I was also harsh towards her in this situation? One user said, NTA, not to pry, but you've obviously been married for over 30 years. How is it possible that you didn't know she harbors such deeply prejudiced views until now? To this, OP said, there was never a situation where we were directly involved with African Americans. She's never displayed this type of behavior before. Racism is not a preference, and it's not even about her, it's about my son. Supporting prejudice is never something I'll do. That's not why I ask this. I'm never going to be sympathetic towards her views. I asked if I was too harsh, not if I was wrong. This is a horrible mentality, and at the end of the day, my wife apparently holds prejudiced views. I'm not about to try and understand that. That's unacceptable. Could I have been kinder? Absolutely. Could I understand where she's coming from? Absolutely not, especially given our situation. I've had contact with plenty of black people. They have never been intricately involved in our lives. For example, her siblings never dated black people, neither has anyone in my family. The closest person would be my middle child's best friend, and they didn't really connect until the middle of high school. Update. I want to mention a couple of things. First, I've been around black people, but they were never part of my inner circle until Danny came along. Also, I think it's ridiculous that twerking has a negative connotation. It's just dancing. And the video my wife found was from Danny at a nightclub. She wasn't dancing that way in a church. My daughter Ari and her mom are very close. So I asked her to breakfast today and we talked. I simply asked if she knew her mom to be prejudiced. She asked why, and I told her about the incident with Danny. Ari told me everything suddenly made sense. She said it was subtle, but when she was in high school, she lost a chess match to a Hispanic boy, and Naomi said he must have cheated. But during another round, when she lost to a white girl, her mom just said she was really good. She listed a few other incidents, but it was heartbreaking to see Ari realize her mom is not who she thought she was. Ari then explained how this is problematic because Kyle was about to propose soon. I guess Ari talked to her before I could because my wife asked how I could bring the kids into the argument. I said this argument is about their brother. Our kids are very close, so they were gonna find out eventually. I said, since she's done crying, does she want to explain what last night was about? She said it wasn't serious. I thought about how if my son and Danny got married and had children, I wouldn't be involved if I chose to stay with Naomi, and that's not a chance I was willing to take. So I packed my bag and told Naomi if she's not even willing to talk to me, I can't stay in this relationship. She said stop before I left out the door and started crying again. She admitted to having prejudiced tendencies. She also admitted that she's jealous of Danny. She said she was supposed to succeed like her and be smart like her. She said it's not fair. I said it was fair. Growing up, my wife was not poor or had it hard by any means. She had access to tutors and the best schools. I said that's a sad and pathetic excuse. She then said she was losing both of us to Danny. I asked how, and she talked about how I complimented Danny's cooking but don't like Japanese food. I explained how I'm just not a fan of Japanese food, but I eat it when she makes it. But it can't be about the food because she already had a problem before we got there. I told her I'm leaving, and that until she changes her ways or gets help, I'm not coming back, and I'm getting a divorce if she doesn't apologize to Danny and mean it. I have just been driving around since that conversation, and I'm hurt that the love of my life is not who I thought she was. User 41 Flavors and then some said, if you've never had your thoughts truly challenged regarding racism, and that probably applies to most people, I can understand why OP didn't realize how racist his wife is. People often distinguish between overt racism and diet racism, which some might dismiss since OP's wife isn't yelling, "Go back to your own country." I'm glad he took decisive measures once he realized. User Potential Click said, her racism may not have been apparent because traditional Japanese racism may be different from traditional American racism. To this user, Dammit, Gravity said, American racism is often refreshingly blatant and direct. In contrast, other countries may have far more subtle forms of racism, which many Americans have difficulty recognizing.